Welcome to the Sleepless Historian. If you find this video soothing, consider liking and subscribing to our channel. And remember to turn on loop so the gentle waves of history can wash over you again and again. Now, let us settle into a cozy space. Dim the lights around you. Adjust your pillow to find that perfect spot of comfort. Wrap yourself in a soft blanket, perhaps inhaling deeply and exhaling slowly. Let your shoulders relax. Today, we gently unfold the history of ancient Egyptian hieroglyphic translation, approval processes. This topic may seem mundane, even excruciatingly unexciting, yet it invites us into a world where every detail matters. A world where the smallest stroke of a stylus on papyrus could change the course of a message. In ancient Egypt, the process of getting hieroglyphics approved was a slow and methodical endeavor. It was not merely about crafting beautiful symbols. No, it involved layers of bureaucracy. Little by little, scribes would submit their written works to various gatekeepers. These gatekeepers, often priests or government officials, would meticulously review each hieroglyph. Each symbol had its own meaning, and the arrangement of these symbols conveyed complex ideas. Each approval could take days, or even weeks. The scribes would wait, sometimes nervously, as their work was scrutinized. Slowly and gently, we will explore the intricacies of this process, from the measurements of the papyrus sheets to the etiquette expected of a scribe during the review. We will delve into the tools they used, the ink they mixed, and the careful strokes they practiced. Imagine the feel of the papyrus beneath their fingers, the weight of the ink pot resting on a sturdy desk. Each moment, each detail was a dance of precision and patience. As we embark on this exploration, allow yourself to breathe deeply once more and settle in further. Embrace the rhythm of the past, where every moment unfolded slowly, with intention and care. And so, let us begin this soft journey through the tedious yet fascinating landscape of ancient Egyptian bureaucracy and the art of hieroglyphic translation. As we continue our tranquil exploration, let us turn our attention to the tools of the trade, the instruments that the ancient Egyptian scribes relied upon for their meticulous work. The scribe's toolkit was simple yet effective. It included a small, sharp reed used for writing, known as a calamus. This tool was carefully cut to ensure a fine point, allowing for precise strokes. The calamus was dipped into a small vessel filled with ink. This ink was often made from a mixture of soot and water, sometimes thickened with gum to create a smooth consistency. The ink was dark, almost black, which contrasted sharply against the pale surface of the papyrus. The scribe would steady his hand, drawing the calamus across the papyrus in a fluid motion, forming the elegant curves and lines of each hieroglyph. Each stroke required concentration and patience, as mistakes could lead to the need for extensive revisions. In fact, it was common practice to keep a scrap piece of papyrus nearby, where the scribe could practice his strokes before committing them to the final document. This was a ritual of sorts, one that allowed the scribe to feel confident in his abilities before presenting his work for approval. The papyrus itself was a remarkable material. Made from the pith of the papyrus plant, it was carefully harvested and processed. The inner stem was sliced into thin strips, which were then laid out in a crisscross pattern, pressed together, and dried under the sun. This process created a smooth, durable surface on which to write. The quality of papyrus could vary, with the finest sheets being quite expensive, sometimes costing several deben, a unit of weight and currency in ancient Egypt. Yow! The scribes, often working for temples or the state, would have access to these materials, each sheet measured meticulously, usually about 20 to 30 centimeters wide and up to several meters long, depending on the project. The cost of higher quality papyrus meant that scribes had to manage their resources carefully. When they approached the gatekeepers for approval, it was customary to present their work with a certain degree of formality. This involved not only the careful arrangement of the papyrus, but also a respectful demeanor. Scribes would often bow their heads slightly when handing over their scrolls, a gesture that conveyed humility and respect for the authority of those reviewing their work. The gatekeepers, often seated at a desk adorned with various writing tools and vessels of ink, would receive the scroll with careful hands. They would unfurl the papyrus gradually, allowing the ink to dry thoroughly before inspecting the contents. This process could take time, as the gatekeepers scrutinized each symbol with a discerning eye. They would check for accuracy in the hieroglyphs, ensuring that each symbol was correctly drawn and properly placed. Each review involved a silent exchange of focus, a rhythm of concentration that filled the air. The scribes would often sit in silence, waiting and watching as their work was examined. If a mistake was found, it was not uncommon for a gatekeeper to shake his head slightly, a subtle gesture indicating that revisions were necessary. The scribe would then be required to take the scroll back to his workspace, often feeling a weight of disappointment. However, it was understood that this was part of the process. In ancient Egypt, the pursuit of knowledge and clarity in communication was held in the highest esteem. Thus, even the smallest error could lead to significant delays. The scribes, understanding this expectation, would often prepare for prolonged periods of waiting and eventual resubmission. Nay, once the scroll was approved, the scribe would receive a small token or mark of approval, a simple affirmation that their work had met the standards of the gatekeepers. This could be as subtle as a seal of wax or the application of a stamp on the corner of the document. The feeling of this approval was sweet, a gentle reminder of the diligence that had gone into the creation of the hieroglyphs. As we delve deeper into the life of a scribe, we can imagine their daily routine, a rhythm of writing and waiting. A typical day might begin early in the morning, as the sun began to rise, casting a soft light across the workspace. The scribe would gather his tools, preparing them for the day's tasks. He would first check his ink, ensuring it was ready for use. Then he would select a fresh piece of papyrus, perhaps rolling out several meters if he had a lengthy text to compose. Each sheet would be laid out carefully, aligned properly on the writing surface. The scribe would begin his work, writing slowly and deliberately, making sure each symbol was formed correctly. The rhythm of the calamus against the papyrus would create a soft sound, a soothing backdrop that accompanied his focused efforts. Throughout the day, he might take breaks, allowing his eyes to rest on the horizon outside. The sun would move across the sky, and shadows would lengthen, signaling the passage of time. During these moments, the scribe could reflect on his work, perhaps even reciting the meanings of the symbols in his mind, reinforcing his understanding of each one. As the day wound down, he would prepare for the evening. He might review his scrolls once more, ensuring that everything was in order before submission. The act of rolling up the scroll was a ritual of closure, a gentle pausing of the day's activities. This careful preparation was essential, as the scribe needed to appear competent and organized when presenting his work to the gatekeepers. The presentation, after all, was just as important as the content itself. Hello, I am Samnei. As he settled in for the evening, perhaps by flickering candlelight, the scribe would allow himself to breathe deeply, reflecting on the day's efforts. The soft glow of the candles would illuminate the hieroglyphs, casting shadows that danced across the walls of his workspace. With each scroll neatly tucked away, he would close his eyes, allowing the gentle rhythm of his breath to match the soothing beat of the past. Each day, each symbol, each moment of waiting. This was the life of a scribe, a life woven from patience and precision. And so, as we gradually transition through this serene landscape, let us embrace the stillness of the ancient world. Let the soft whispers of hieroglyphs and the quiet diligence of scribes carry us into a restful state, slowly and gently. As the scribe prepared for his presentation to the bureaucratic gatekeepers, he took a moment to gather his tools. His workspace, modest yet functional, was filled with the essentials of his trade. A large, flat surface made of smooth wood served as his writing desk, while a shallow wooden box held various implements. Each tool had its own designated space, ensuring that order reigned supreme in this small realm of creativity. The reed pens, crafted with care from the papyrus plant, were his primary instruments. Each pen was carefully shaped, the tip cut at a precise angle to allow for a fine line of ink. The ink itself was a rich mixture of soot and water, sometimes blended with natural gum to enhance its viscosity. A small ceramic pot, with edges slightly chipped from years of use, held the ink. The pot was placed within easy reach, ensuring that the scribe could dip his pen without disrupting his flow of thought. Carefully, he measured out the ink with a small wooden stick, ensuring just the right amount was available for his work. This simple task was a dance of precision. Too little ink would leave his hieroglyphs faint and difficult to read, while too much could cause unsightly blotches across the delicate papyrus scroll. Each dip and stroke was deliberate, the rhythm of his movements echoing the very essence of writing itself. The scrolls were made from layers of the papyrus plant, pressed and dried under the warm sun of the Nile. Each scroll, once unrolled, would measure approximately 30 to 40 centimeters in width and could stretch several meters in length. This allowed ample space for the intricacies of hieroglyphs, which would unfurl like a delicate story as the scroll was opened. The scribe would often take a moment to appreciate the texture of the papyrus, its fibrous surface whispering tales of the past while he prepared his thoughts. As he worked, the scribe adhered to a meticulous routine. The first step was always to read through his completed text, ensuring that each symbol conveyed the intended meaning. He would hold the scroll up to the light, allowing the flickering glow of the candles to illuminate the hieroglyphs, revealing any imperfections that might have gone unnoticed. He paid particular attention to the spacing between symbols, for in the ancient world of Egypt, clarity was paramount. Once satisfied, he would roll the scroll back up, taking care not to crease the edges. The act of rolling was not merely functional. It was a moment of reverence for the words and symbols that had taken form. As he wrapped the scroll, he would feel the familiar weight of anticipation settle within him. This was the moment when his work would transition from personal endeavor to public scrutiny. With the scroll secured, he would next consider the proper etiquette for submission. In ancient Egypt, the process of submitting a hieroglyphic work was laden with formalities. The scribe would choose an appropriate time to visit the gatekeepers, often early in the morning when the sun was just beginning to rise. This timing was strategic. It allowed for the calmness of the early hours to ease the tension of the day ahead. As he navigated through the corridors of the bureaucratic offices, he would ensure that he had all necessary documents in hand. A small piece of linen, elegantly folded, presented a summary of his work. This linen was a miniature canvas, bearing witness to the essence of his scroll. It was essential to present not only the scroll itself, but also an overview, a gentle reminder of the content that lay within. On reaching the gatekeepers, the scribe would bow his head slightly, a gesture of respect. He would offer the linen first, allowing the officials to review the summary before presenting the scroll. This step was crucial. It provided an opportunity for the gatekeepers to understand the context of his work. Patience would be essential during this waiting period, as the gatekeepers often took their time, deliberating with furrowed brows and thoughtful expressions. As he stood quietly, the scribe would focus on his breath. Inhale and exhale, allowing the rhythm to ground him in the present moment. The air might carry the faint scent of papyrus and ink, mingling softly with the earthy tones of the office. This small act of mindfulness would serve to calm his nerves as he awaited their judgment. Slowly and gently, the gatekeepers would begin to review his work. They would unroll the scroll, their fingers gliding over the hieroglyphs, examining the strokes and the symbols for clarity and precision. Each gatekeeper had their own unique style of approval. Some would take their time, reading each symbol aloud, while others would merely scan the work, their eyes darting over the parchment, searching for anything amiss. What? During this evaluation process, the scribe would remain composed. He understood the importance of this moment. Approval from the gatekeepers was not merely an acknowledgement of his skills, but a vital step in ensuring that his work would reach a wider audience. The fate of his hieroglyphs rested in their hands. Mein Shade. As the gatekeepers deliberated, the scribe would often find himself lost in the details of their discussions. The subtle nuances of their language, the way they referenced certain symbols and their meanings, were a testament to the depth of knowledge held by these officials. He would listen intently, absorbing their insights, knowing that each remark could enhance his future work. After a time, the deliberation would conclude. The gatekeepers would nod in unison, signaling their approval. A sense of relief would wash over the scribe, as the scroll would be marked with a seal, a simple yet powerful symbol of acceptance. This seal, often made from clay, would bear the insignia of the authority granting approval. With the seal affixed, the scroll was now ready for distribution, a journey that would take it far from the confines of the bureaucratic office. The scribe would thank the gatekeepers, bowing once more, and feel the weight of their approval on his shoulders, a gentle reassurance that he was indeed part of something larger than himself. After leaving the office, he might stop by the marketplace on his way home. The market was a vibrant tapestry of life, filled with the sounds of vendors calling out their wares. Fresh fruits, textiles, and of course more papyrus. Each item had its own place, each seller a part of the daily rhythm of the city. The scribe would exchange pleasantries, perhaps purchasing a small treat to celebrate his day. The prices of goods varied, but he knew that a few dried figs or a small loaf of bread would suffice. He would count out the coins, each one a small piece of metal that held value and meaning in the world around him. As he walked back home, he would reflect on the day, the process of approval, and the small victories that came with it. As the sun began to dip below the horizon, casting a warm glow over the landscape, he would feel a sense of contentment settle within him. The day had been long, filled with the quiet complexities of life as a scribe. And so, he would prepare for the evening, ready to unroll his scroll once more, ensuring that everything was in order before submission. Slowly and gently. G. As the scribe returned home, he would carefully place his newly acquired goods on a low table, crafted from sturdy wood, its surface smooth through years of gentle use. He would take a moment to appreciate the simplicity of his surroundings. The walls of his modest dwelling were adorned with subtle decorations, small clay pots, perhaps, holding dried herbs and simple paintings that depicted daily life in ancient Egypt. The light from the oil lamp flickered softly, casting calming shadows across the room. He would then take a deep breath, inhaling the faint scent of the herbs before preparing for the evening's work. The scribe knew the importance of maintaining a tidy workspace, especially when dealing with the delicate papyrus scrolls. He would begin by laying out his tools, a sharpened reed pen, its tip carefully carved to create the finest lines, and a small jar of ink made from soot and gum, its consistency just right for the intricate hieroglyphs he would inscribe. Well, he would gather his papyrus, each sheet a testament to the labor of skilled artisans. The papyrus was carefully made from the stalks of the papyrus plant, cut into thin strips and layered, pressed and dried. The scribe appreciated the smooth texture, perfect for writing, and he would run his fingers gently over the surface. Next, he would prepare to roll out the scroll, the sound of the papyrus unrolling soothing in the quiet of his home. He would measure the length he needed, marking it lightly with a pencil made from charcoal, ensuring he had ample space for his hieroglyphs. Each character he would inscribe required precision, a steady hand, and a clear mind. He would take a moment to collect his thoughts, reminding himself of the significance of each symbol. The hieroglyphs represented not merely sounds, but concepts, ideas, and stories. Slowly and gently, he would begin his work, dipping the reed pen into the ink, feeling the coolness transfer to the warm wood of the pen. As he started writing, his focus would sharpen. The scribe would begin with the basic symbols, the simple strokes that define the essence of the language. Each symbol required a specific number of strokes, and he would count in his mind, ensuring that each line was both accurate and aesthetically pleasing. The first character, perhaps representing the sun, would flow smoothly onto the page. He would pause, taking a deep breath, allowing himself to feel the rhythm of the writing process. Then he would move to the next symbol, perhaps a symbol for water, flowing gently from the pen, each stroke deliberate and calm. His thoughts might drift to the approval process he had recently endured. He would reflect on the layers of bureaucracy that surrounded his work. The scroll would eventually need to be submitted to the local official for approval. This official, tasked with overseeing the documentation process, would have his own set of expectations. The scribe knew that submitting a scroll required more than just the writing. It involved a careful presentation. He would need to ensure that the scroll was rolled tightly, secured with a piece of twine made from flax, and perhaps adorned with a small seal, ensuring its authenticity. He recalled the day he had witnessed another scribe's submission. The process was almost ritualistic, with the official sitting behind a wooden desk, covered in an array of papers and inkpots. This official would examine each scroll with great care, often requiring the submission of additional documents or explanations. The scribe would picture the official, his brows furrowed in concentration, reviewing hieroglyphs with a meticulous eye, searching for errors and inconsistencies. The approval process could take days, even weeks, and the scribe knew he must be patient. He would often find himself worrying about the outcome, pondering whether his work would meet the expectations of the bureaucratic gatekeepers. However, tonight, as he inscribed the characters with soft movements, he would remind himself that each stroke was a step toward achieving his goal. He would breathe in deeply, feeling the tension in his shoulders release. Slowly and gently, he would continue, each symbol a reassurance that he was part of a larger tradition, a history that stretched back through the ages. After finishing a few lines, he would take a moment to assess his work. The ink would be glistening slightly, and he would carefully touch it with his fingertip, ensuring it was dry before continuing. The drying process was delicate. He knew that even a slight smudge could lead to misunderstandings during the approval phase. He would take note of the size of the characters, ensuring they adhered to the standards expected of such documents. The height of each symbol was important, as it conveyed not only the meaning, but the respect afforded to the reader. The scribe would often measure with his fingers, using his own hand as a guide for consistency. As he continued writing, he would keep an eye on the clock, a simple timekeeper made from a thin piece of wood and a small bowl of water. The sound of water gently lapping against the bowl would remind him to stay mindful of his pace. The scribe knew he would need to finish a certain number of lines before the evening came to a close. Once he had completed the required number of hieroglyphs, he would take the time to review his work. He would look for alignment, ensuring that the symbols were straight and uniform. He would fixate on minor details, like the spacing between characters, ensuring no two symbols were too close together or too far apart. With each stroke, he felt a sense of satisfaction, a gentle wave of accomplishment washing over him. Slowly and gently, he would roll the scroll back up, readying it for the next day's submission. He would tie it securely with twine, the simple knot a sign of his diligence. Finally, he would place the scroll in a designated spot, a small wooden chest designed to protect his work from dust and time. He would take a moment to appreciate the chest, its polished surface gleaming softly in the light. The scribe would then settle down, perhaps enjoying a small fig or a piece of bread as he reflected on the day's efforts. He would allow himself to relax, feeling the weight of the day lift. Each moment spent writing was a moment of connection to the past and a step toward the future. With a contented sigh, he would prepare for sleep, knowing that tomorrow would bring new opportunities, new hieroglyphs to write, and new approvals to seek. He would dim the light, close his eyes, and breathe slowly and gently, letting the rhythm of the past lull him into a peaceful slumber. Nothing. Let's see. The next morning, the scribe would rise with the sun, its soft light filtering through the small window of his modest workspace. He would take a moment to stretch, gently raising his arms above his head, feeling the lightness in his limbs. He would then move towards the small basin, filled with cool water, to wash his hands. The water would ripple softly, a gentle sound, as he dipped his fingers in, washing away the remnants of yesterday's work. After drying his hands on a linen cloth, he would gather his tools. His primary instrument would be a thin reed pen, its tip carefully cut to create a fine point, perfect for the delicate strokes of hieroglyphs. He would hold it lightly between his fingers, appreciating its simplicity and functionality. Beside the reed pen, he would keep a small pot of black ink, made from soot, mixed with water and a binding agent, perhaps gum arabic. The ink would flow smoothly as he dipped the pen into the pot, readying himself for the day's task. Slowly and gently, he would unroll the scroll again, feeling the familiar texture of the papyrus beneath his fingertips. It was a carefully prepared sheet, measuring about 20 inches wide and several feet long. Each strip of papyrus made from the pith of the papyrus plant, layered and pressed together. The surface was smooth, perfect for inscribing the intricate symbols of his language. As he began to write, he would take care to maintain a steady pace, each hieroglyph carefully placed, each stroke deliberate. He knew that the approval of the bureaucratic gatekeepers depended on his precision, and so he would focus intently. Each character had its place, and he would measure the distance between them, ensuring they were neither too cramped nor too far apart. He might spend an hour on a single line, allowing the rhythm of his pen to guide him into a meditative state. Once a section was complete, he would pause, allowing his eyes to rest on the newly inscribed symbols. With a gentle breath, he would take a moment to appreciate the artistry of his work. Then, he would carefully place the scroll aside, ensuring that the ink had time to dry, preventing any smudging. This process, while tedious, was essential. Smudged ink could lead to rejection by the approval committee, and he wanted to avoid the embarrassment of resubmission. Once the ink had dried, he would carefully roll the scroll again, this time taking extra care to avoid creasing it. He would use the twine to secure it, making sure the knot was neat and tidy. Each scroll would be labeled with a small tag made of clay, inscribed with the title of the work and the date. This practice was not just for organization. It was a matter of etiquette, a sign of respect for the process and for those who would review his work. With the scrolls neatly prepared, he would gather them into a larger container, perhaps a woven basket made from palm fronds, designed to hold multiple scrolls. This basket would sit in a corner of his workspace, a repository of creativity and diligence. He would have a second basket, designated for scrolls that had been approved, each one carefully placed inside, knowing that the approval process was just as important as the act of writing itself. Eat in. The approval process involved a committee of esteemed scribes and scholars who would meet at the Temple of Thoth. This temple, a majestic structure adorned with carvings and symbols of wisdom, was only a short walk from his workspace. He would often take this walk, enjoying the fresh air and the sounds of the bustling marketplace. As he walked, he would pass vendors selling various goods, pottery, textiles, and even small jars of spices. Often he would stop to admire the wares, perhaps purchasing a small item, a reward for his diligent efforts. Arriving at the temple, he would approach the entrance, where two guards would stand watch. They would nod in acknowledgement, recognizing him as a familiar face among the many scribes seeking approval. Once inside, he would take a moment to breathe deeply, absorbing the atmosphere of reverence and scholarship. The air was filled with the scent of incense, wafting from small braziers placed throughout the hall. He would wait patiently in a designated area, where many other scribes gathered, each clutching their scrolls tightly. The process could be lengthy, as each scroll would be scrutinized thoroughly. The committee would gather around a large table, their expressions serious, their eyes focused on the scroll before them. He would listen carefully, noting the feedback given to others, trying to glean insight into what the committee valued most. The review process was rigorous. They would examine the clarity of the symbols, the neatness of the writing, and the overall presentation of the scroll. Each member of the committee would have their own preferences, and the scribe knew that pleasing all of them was no small feat. He would often take notes, jotting down comments or suggestions, ensuring he could improve his future submissions. After what felt like an eternity, his turn would finally arrive. He would approach the table with a calm demeanor, unrolling his scroll slowly, allowing the committee members to see his work clearly. A gentle tension would fill the air as he awaited their response. They would examine the hieroglyphs closely, their fingers tracing the lines as they whispered among themselves. When the committee finally rendered their decision, he would feel a wave of relief wash over him. If approved, he would receive a small seal, embossed with the emblem of the temple, signifying that his work was worthy. This seal, made from clay, would be a prized possession, a mark of his dedication and skill. If the scroll did not pass, he would take their comments to heart, knowing he could improve and resubmit. With the seal in hand, he would leave the temple, feeling a sense of accomplishment. The sun would shine brightly overhead, and he would make his way back home, reflecting on the day's events. He would take care to store the approved scrolls in a safe place, ensuring they remained undamaged. Once home, he would settle down again, perhaps enjoying a cup of herbal tea, the warmth of the cup soothing his hands. He would close his eyes for a moment, breathing slowly and gently, allowing his mind to wander through the symbols he had written. Each hieroglyph told a story, each stroke carried meaning, and he was proud to be part of this long tradition of communication. In the quiet of his workspace, he would prepare for the next day, his thoughts drifting to the hieroglyphs yet to be written, the approvals yet to be sought. The rhythm of the past would cradle him as he settled into a comfortable position, ready to embrace the tranquility of sleep. The gentle sounds of the world outside would fade away, and he would drift off, knowing that tomorrow would bring new tasks, new challenges, and the beauty of ancient writing. Slowly and gently. The next day would begin with the soft light of dawn filtering through the windows. The scholar would rise slowly, stretching his limbs and taking a moment to breathe deeply, allowing the gentle rhythm of his breath to guide him into the day ahead. He would prepare a simple breakfast, perhaps a bowl of barley porridge, simmered to a creamy texture, sweetened with a drizzle of honey. The warmth of the porridge would bring comfort and energy, a satisfying start to the day's tasks. After breakfast, he would gather his tools for writing. He would carefully select a reed pen, its tip shaped just right for the delicate strokes of hieroglyphs. Each pen would be made with precision, crafted from the reeds that grew along the banks of the Nile. He would take a moment to appreciate the smoothness of the pen, feeling its weight in his hand. The process of writing would begin with preparing the papyrus sheets, each one cut to a standard size, approximately 30 centimeters in width and 50 centimeters in length. And they say, he would lay the sheets flat on his writing surface, ensuring that they were completely smooth, free from any creases or imperfections. The surface would be a wooden table, worn but sturdy, with the faintest scent of cedar lingering in the air. He would keep a small bowl of water nearby, dipping the reed pen occasionally to keep the ink fluid. The ink itself would be a mixture of soot and water, carefully blended to achieve the right consistency. Dark enough to be bold, yet fluid enough to glide across the papyrus. As he began to write, he would focus on the careful formation of each symbol. The hieroglyphs were intricate, and each line had to be precise. He would allow himself to become absorbed in the task, the rhythmic motion of writing becoming almost meditative. With each stroke, he would think of the meaning behind the symbols, the stories they told, and the way they would be received by those who read them. Each scroll would represent hours of work. He would aim to complete one scroll per day, but sometimes the intricacies of the hieroglyphs required more time. If he found himself struggling with a particular symbol, he would set the pen down, take a deep breath, and allow his mind to clear. He would pause, perhaps looking out the window at the distant pyramids, allowing the sight to inspire him. Once a scroll was completed, the next step would be to allow it to dry completely. He would lay it flat in a shaded area, protected from any potential damage. This drying process would take several hours, during which he would prepare for the next phase, gathering additional materials for the approval process. He would visit the local marketplace, where the sounds of merchants calling out their wares would fill the air. The market would be a lively place, but he would move through it with calm purpose. He would look for small containers made from clay or wood, perfect for storing his scrolls securely. These containers would be essential for ensuring that the scrolls remained pristine during transport, protecting them from dust and moisture. As he walked through the market, he would carefully consider the prices of the containers. A sturdy wooden box might cost around 5 Deben, while a simple clay pot could be found for just 2. He would weigh his options, ensuring that he had enough resources to purchase both the container and any additional materials he might need. Perhaps more papyrus or a new jar of ink. One day, once he had gathered the necessary supplies, he would return home, feeling the satisfaction of having accomplished another small task in his day. He would place the scrolls gently into the container, ensuring that they were snug but not crumpled. The attention to detail was crucial, as even the slightest crease could lead to a rejection from the approval committee. After securing his scrolls, he would prepare to visit the temple once more. The journey to the temple would be a familiar one, and he would walk at a slow pace, allowing himself to enjoy the sights and sounds of the community. The air would be fragrant with the scent of blooming papyrus, and the gentle rustle of leaves would accompany him as he walked. Upon arriving at the temple, he would check in with the gatekeepers, who oversaw the process of scroll submissions. Each gatekeeper had their own role, and he would greet them politely, acknowledging their presence. The gatekeepers would take their time, reviewing the scrolls thoroughly, examining each detail. He would wait patiently, standing in a shaded area, allowing the cool breeze to brush against his skin. While he waited, he would reflect on the importance of the approval process. The hieroglyphs held great significance, and the gatekeepers were tasked with ensuring that only the finest scrolls were accepted. This meticulous review could take hours, and he would remain calm, understanding that each moment spent waiting was part of the journey. When it was finally his turn, he would present his scroll with reverence, ensuring that it was displayed clearly for the gatekeepers to examine. Their scrutiny would be intense, and he would listen quietly as they discussed the composition, the clarity of the symbols, and the overall presentation. Each comment made would be noted, each suggestion taken to heart. Whoa. If the scroll was approved, he would feel a wave of relief wash over him. He would receive the stamp of approval, a small mark made with a special ink that indicated the committee's acceptance. This stamp would be crucial for any future submissions, a symbol of his diligence and commitment to the craft. He would take care to keep the approved scroll flat and secure, ensuring it would not be damaged in the process. And if changes were required, he would listen attentively, jotting down notes in the margins of his mind. He would thank the gatekeepers for their feedback, promising to make the necessary adjustments. Each interaction would reinforce the importance of patience and persistence in the world of hieroglyphic writing. As the day came to a close, he would make his way back home, the sun setting low on the horizon. The sky would be painted with hues of orange and pink, and he would take a moment to appreciate the beauty of the evening. Once home, he would unwind, perhaps lighting a small oil lamp to cast a warm glow over his workspace. He would prepare for the next day, reflecting on the lessons learned during the approval process. Each scroll was not just a piece of paper. It was a testament to his dedication, his skill, and the legacy of the ancient language. Now, he would settle into his chair, a comfortable spot that had molded to his shape, and allow his weary eyes to close for a moment. Taking deep breaths, slowly and gently, he would let the events of the day wash over him. The rhythm of life in ancient Egypt, with its routines and rituals, would lull him into a state of calm, reassuring him that tomorrow would bring new opportunities to write, to create, and to connect with the past. As the sun dipped further below the horizon, casting a soft twilight glow over the ancient city, the scribe prepared for another day of diligent work ahead. He would rise early, as was customary, before the first light of dawn broke through the stillness of the night. The ritual of waking was a slow and gentle process, involving the stretching of limbs, the easing of joints, and a few deep, calming breaths. In the quietude of his home, he would begin his day by preparing his tools, each item serving a specific purpose. He would reach for his reed pens, carefully crafted from the papyrus plants that grew along the banks of the Nile. These pens, slim and delicate, would glide smoothly across the surface of the papyrus, allowing him to express complex thoughts with exquisite precision. He would select a few, ensuring they were finely sharpened, the tips pointed and ready to capture the ideas that flowed in his mind. Next, he would gather his ink, a deep, rich black liquid made from soot mixed with water and a binding agent, often gum arabic. He would take a small bowl, gently pouring the ink until it reached just the right level, not too full to avoid spillage, but enough to keep him writing for an extended period. The ink had a velvety texture, glistening under the soft light of the oil lamp, inviting him to begin his work. As he settled down at his workspace, he would arrange his scrolls with care. Each scroll of papyrus, typically measuring about 30 centimeters wide and extending up to 10 meters long, was meticulously rolled and stored in a dry place to prevent any curling or damage. The papyrus itself, a gift from the river, had been prepared with great care, its fibers pressed and dried to create a smooth surface for writing. He would take a moment to appreciate the papyrus, feeling its texture, its weight. Slowly and gently, this was not just a medium for writing. It was a vessel for communication, a bridge between thoughts and the world beyond. Each scroll represented hours of labor, both in its creation and in the writing process that would soon unfold. And before beginning his day's work, he would review the hieroglyphs he had written previously, ensuring they met the standards necessary for approval. This involved looking closely at each symbol, each pictograph, and considering their placement and alignment on the scroll. He would run his fingers over the symbols, feeling the grooves left by his reed pen. The hieroglyphs were not merely letters. They were images, each with its own significance, each telling a story of its own. Once satisfied with his previous work, he would turn his attention to the task of drafting new texts. He would pull out a fresh sheet of papyrus and place it on his writing surface, adjusting it until it lay flat. The process of writing itself was methodical. He would dip his pen into the ink, allowing the tip to absorb just enough to create a steady flow. He would begin with the first symbol, pressing gently onto the papyrus, allowing the ink to transfer smoothly, forming the first character of his new work. With each stroke, he would breathe deeply, focusing on the rhythm of his writing. The creation of hieroglyphs required not only skill, but also a sense of mindfulness. He would take care to ensure each symbol was not only accurate, but also beautifully rendered. The angles, the curves, the proportions, each element required his full attention. In the course of the day, he would also keep track of the time. Ancient Egyptians measured their days by the sun's position, and he would often glance outside to see how the light shifted. Mornings were for focused work, while afternoons were often dedicated to consultations with his fellow scribes or the oversight of the approval process. Throughout the day, he would take moments to reflect on the work of his peers. He would engage in discussions about their latest translations, sharing insights and suggestions. This camaraderie, this gentle exchange of ideas, was vital not just for individual improvement, but for the collective advancement of the craft. When it came time to submit his work for approval, he would prepare the scrolls with care. He would roll them neatly, ensuring they were tightly bound without being too constrictive. He would then secure them with a simple piece of twine, a practical yet elegant touch. The scrolls were often passed through a series of hands, each gatekeeper responsible for different aspects of the approval process. He would present his work to the first gatekeeper, a senior scribe known for his meticulous eye. This process involved a formal greeting, a respectful bow, and a presentation of the scroll, accompanied by a brief explanation of the content. The gatekeeper would unroll the scroll slowly, examining each symbol with great scrutiny. This moment required patience. He would often find himself holding his breath as he awaited feedback. If the gatekeeper had concerns, he would provide constructive feedback. The scribe would listen carefully, nodding in understanding, mentally noting the adjustments that needed to be made. This process repeated itself with other gatekeepers, each adding their layer of critique and suggestion. Each interaction, though sometimes tedious, reinforced the importance of diligence and attention to detail in the scribe's work. As the day progressed, the scribe would find comfort in the routine, the slow, methodical pace of his tasks. He would know that each cycle of revision and approval brought him closer to the final goal of having his work recognized and appreciated. Why? Did he? With the sun beginning its descent once more, he would return home, reflecting on the day's lessons learned. Each comment from the gatekeepers, each suggestion, served as a reminder of the importance of perseverance in learning and writing. Once home, he would settle into his chair again, allowing the rhythm of the evening to envelop him. The familiar sounds of the city settling down for the night would lull him into a state of calm. He would take a moment to breathe deeply, allowing the events of the day to wash over him like gentle waves. With his tools put away and the last light of day fading, he felt a sense of peace. Tomorrow would bring new opportunities to write, to create, and to connect with the profound legacy of the ancient language. And so, he would close his eyes, letting the soft embrace of night envelop him, ready to dream of hieroglyphs dancing in the gentle light of the moon. And in this quietude, the world of ancient Egypt would continue to flow, with its routines, its rituals, and its enduring stories waiting to be told. Slowly and gently, right into the night. As the sun dipped below the horizon, it marked the beginning of another serene evening in the ancient world. In the soft glow of the fading light, our diligent scribe prepared for another night of meticulous work. He would gather his tools, each one essential for the intricate task ahead. The first item was a sharpened reed pen, its tip delicately trimmed to create fine strokes. He would dip it into a small vessel of black ink, made from soot and water, carefully mixed to achieve the perfect consistency. The papyrus sheets, so carefully crafted from the pith of the papyrus plant, lay stacked beside him. Each sheet measured approximately 30 centimeters in width and 15 centimeters in height, just the right size for notes and translations. He would select a fresh sheet, feeling its smooth texture beneath his fingers. The papyrus was not just a medium. It was a canvas for his thoughts and interpretations. Slowly and gently, he would unroll it, preparing for the writing process that lay ahead. Next, he would position himself comfortably on a low stool, allowing his feet to rest flat on the cool earthen floor. There was an art to the way he sat, his back straight yet relaxed, shoulders down, creating a perfect posture for hours of writing. He took a moment to breathe deeply, feeling the air fill his lungs, before focusing on the task before him. But his workspace was simple, yet functional. A small clay lamp flickered softly, its flame casting a warm glow across the surface of the papyrus. The light was just enough to illuminate the meticulous characters of the hieroglyphs, each stroke a blend of artistry and communication. The lamp, filled with olive oil, was carefully tended to, ensuring the wick was trimmed to prevent any excessive smoke. He would tend to it regularly, knowing that a steady flame was essential for clarity in his writing. As he dipped his reed pen into the ink, he would begin to form the first characters, each symbol representing a sound, a word, or a concept. The precise angle of the pen, the pressure applied, and the flow of the ink were all crucial. He had spent years perfecting this technique, understanding that even the slightest change could alter the meaning of the inscription. Each hieroglyph was a small masterpiece, an emblem of the culture, a reflection of the thoughts and beliefs of his people. With every stroke, he would take care to follow the established conventions of hieroglyphic writing. The orientation was important. Symbols were often arranged in horizontal lines, with the direction of the characters indicating how to read the text. He would pause occasionally, examining his work, ensuring the symbols were aligned perfectly. The quiet hum of the evening was a gentle companion as he focused on the shapes before him. When he completed a section, he would lay down his pen. This was the moment he would reflect on what he had just transcribed, ensuring that it adhered to the expectations of the gatekeepers. The gatekeepers, a committee of learned individuals, were responsible for approving translations, and their scrutiny was both rigorous and exacting. He would often spend long hours pondering their criteria, understanding that to receive their blessing, his work must reflect the highest standards of accuracy and artistry. Once he felt satisfied with a section, he would fold the papyrus carefully. Folding was not merely a practical step. It was a ritual of respect for the work he had created. He would place it in a small leather pouch, which served to protect his writings from the elements and the wear of time. The pouch was designed to hold several sheets, and each fold was made with care, ensuring that the edges met perfectly. The process of submitting his work to the gatekeepers was another evening ritual. He would prepare a formal request, inscribed on a fresh piece of papyrus. The request would include a brief overview of the content, the significance of the translations, and a respectful appeal for their approval. This document was equally important as the translations themselves, for it set the tone of humility and deference that was customary in their society. Once the request was complete, he would journey to the temple, where the gatekeepers convened. The trip was not long, but it was filled with anticipation and a touch of anxiety. He would walk through the narrow streets, the shadows growing longer as the night deepened, each step echoing the rhythm of his heart. The familiar sights of the bustling markets and the distant sounds of laughter were a comforting backdrop to his thoughts. Arriving at the temple, he would be greeted by the vastness of the halls and the solemnity of the space. The air was thick with the scent of incense, wafting lazily through the chambers. The gatekeepers sat in a semicircle, their expressions serious yet calm. He would stand before them, offering his folded papyrus with both hands, a gesture of respect. Malyao, wa, pepiheti, wa, iwai. As they began to examine his work, he would patiently wait, his heart steady, his mind clear. This part of the process was often the most prolonged, as each gatekeeper had their own pace, their own style of review. Some would take their time, pondering every detail, while others would move swiftly, offering comments and critiques. Each remark was noted carefully, for it was part of the learning process, a way to refine his skills. After what felt like an eternity, the gatekeepers would provide their feedback. Some comments were encouraging, while others pointed out areas for improvement. He understood that their insights were invaluable, guiding him towards greater mastery of the art of translation. He would return home with the feedback tucked safely in his mind, ready to integrate their wisdom into his future work. The journey back was often quiet, filled with reflections on the evening's events. He would replay the comments in his mind, letting them flow through him, little by little, shaping his thoughts for the next night's efforts. As he walked the familiar path, the stars began to twinkle above, a gentle reminder of the constancy of the universe, the enduring nature of knowledge, and the dedication of those who seek to preserve it. Delis. Settling back into his chair, he would prepare for another session of writing. His tools at the ready, the papyrus waiting to be filled with the whispers of history. The rhythm of his evening routine was soothing, a dance between ink, papyrus, and the echoes of the past. With every stroke and every breath, he continued the legacy of his ancestors, slowly and gently, into the night. As he settled into his chair, he took a moment to gather his tools. The desk was a sanctuary of sorts, adorned with an array of carefully arranged instruments. There was a modest wooden box that held his writing implements. It contained several reed pens, each one crafted with precision. The tips were cut at a slant, allowing for a fine line of ink to flow effortlessly onto the delicate papyrus. The pens were dipped into a small ink pot, fashioned from clay and filled with a deep, rich black ink, made from soot mixed with water and gum. He placed the ink pot gently to the left of the papyrus. The papyrus itself was a remarkable material, soft yet sturdy, made from the pith of the papyrus plant. The sheets were typically about 20 inches long and 10 inches wide, though he preferred a few larger sheets for more ambitious translations. He had purchased these sheets from a local scribe, who sold them at the market for a modest price. Each sheet cost a few copper coins, a small price for the canvas upon which history would be inscribed. He took a moment to admire the texture of the papyrus, the slight grooves and ridges that would cradle his writing. He ran his fingers over the surface, feeling the history embedded in the fibers. The papyrus was often stacked in a neat pile, secured with a simple string when not in use. The string was made of flax, woven together with care, ensuring that each sheet remained pristine until it was ready to be filled with hieroglyphs. His writing session began with a deep breath. He would first lay out the materials in an orderly fashion, ensuring that everything was within reach. The reed pens were arranged by size, the finer tips to the right, and the broader tips to the left. This organization brought him a sense of calm, allowing his mind to settle as he prepared for the task ahead. Next, he would often light an oil lamp, placing it on the edge of the desk, where its warm glow would illuminate the papyrus. The gentle flicker of the flame was soothing, casting soft shadows that danced along the walls. The lamp was filled with a mixture of oil derived from olives, a precious resource that he would buy from the market, typically at the price of a few small coins for a week's supply. Each evening, the lamp would burn steadily, providing a constant source of light as he lost himself in the world of hieroglyphs. With the preparations complete, he dipped his reed pen into the ink, feeling the cool liquid cling to the tip. Slowly and gently, he would begin to write, tracing the intricate symbols with care. The hieroglyphs were more than mere letters. They were a language steeped in history and meaning. He took his time, ensuring that each stroke was precise, each symbol aligned perfectly on the papyrus. He often began with simpler phrases, warming up his hand and mind before delving into more complex translations. Each symbol had a specific meaning, a particular sound or concept, and he would often refer to his collection of reference texts, neatly stored on a shelf above his desk. These texts were scrolls made of papyrus, filled with various translations and notes from previous scholars. He had spent many hours poring over them, cross-referencing their insights with his own interpretations. The process was methodical. For each line he wrote, he would take a moment to pause, reflecting on the significance of the symbols. He would often recite their meanings silently, allowing the sounds to echo in his mind. This was not merely an act of writing. It was a conversation with the past, a dialogue with those who had come before him. He would take breaks as needed, resting his hand for a moment before continuing. In these pauses, he would stretch his fingers, gently loosening any tension that had built up during the focused writing. He would lean back in his chair, feeling the wood beneath him, grounding himself in the moment. The rhythmic sound of the oil lamp flickering would fill the silence, a gentle reminder of the present. As the evening wore on, he would often lose track of time. The stars outside twinkled more brightly as the darkness deepened. He noticed the stillness of the night, punctuated only by the soft rustle of the papyrus as he turned the sheets. Each completed line brought a sense of accomplishment, a step closer to mastering the art of translation. He would occasionally consult his notes, referencing the ancient texts that detailed the intricacies of the hieroglyphic system. These texts were precious, passed down through generations of scholars. He treated them with great respect, carefully unrolling the scrolls to reveal their contents. The papyrus was often aged and delicate, so he would handle it with the utmost care, taking care not to cause any tears or damage. In his study, he had a small wooden box where he kept his most treasured references. This box was lined with soft cloth to protect the scrolls from dust and wear. Inside, he organized the scrolls according to topic. Some focused on mythology, others on daily life in ancient Egypt. Each scroll represented hours of painstaking work, the culmination of knowledge gathered through observation and dedication. The process of translation was not merely about deciphering symbols. It was also about understanding context. He spent considerable time studying the cultural significance behind each phrase, considering the beliefs and traditions of the ancient Egyptians. He would often jot down notes, using a smaller piece of papyrus to record thoughts and insights that emerged during his writing. This smaller sheet would sometimes contain sketches of hieroglyphs or reminders of specific grammatical structures, serving as a quick reference for future sessions. Nim, Noesi. As the hours passed, the oil lamp flickered, casting a warm glow over the papers strewn across his desk. He would sometimes pause to gaze at the flickering flame, letting his mind wander. The quiet of the room was comforting, wrapping around him like a soft blanket. Slowly and gently, he would return his focus to the task at hand, continuing to inscribe the symbols that carried the weight of history. No, Phi. The sounds of the night outside began to fade into the background as he immersed himself deeper into the world of hieroglyphs. Each stroke of the reed pen felt like a heartbeat, a connection between past and present. He was not merely copying symbols. He was breathing life into them, bringing forth the stories they held within. With each completed section, he would carefully roll the papyrus and secure it with a piece of string. Each scroll was treated with reverence, a testament to the work that had gone into its creation. He knew that these translations would not only serve as a record of language, but also as a bridge to understanding the lives of those who had walked the earth long before him. As he continued to write, the night deepened, and the stars shone brighter against the dark sky. He felt a profound sense of calm enveloping him, slowly and gently, guiding him into a peaceful state of reflection. The world outside faded, leaving only the present moment filled with the soft sound of ink on papyrus, the flicker of the lamp, and the whispers of history. He took another deep breath, allowing the tranquility of the night to wash over him. In this sacred space of light and shadow, he remained devoted to the simple yet profound task of translation, connecting the echoes of the past with the whispers of the present. Little by little, he would continue to weave the threads of history, one symbol at a time. The process of ensuring that translations were approved was intricate, almost ritualistic in its nature. The first step for the translator was to gather his tools. He would select a fine reed pen, carefully cut to a precise angle, ensuring the nib was sharp enough to glide smoothly over the surface of the papyrus. The soft rustle of the papyrus sheets brought a sense of comfort, the texture familiar under his fingers. Each sheet was measured meticulously, typically around 30 centimeters wide and up to 20 centimeters tall. This size was ideal for accommodating the symbols, allowing ample space for the flowing characters to breathe. Once the tools were prepared, the translator would sit at his modest desk, a simple wooden structure fashioned from sturdy materials, worn smooth by years of use. He would take a moment to breathe deeply, allowing the stillness of the room to settle around him. With the reed pen in hand, he would dip it into a small vessel of black ink, a mixture of soot and water, creating a rich velvety substance, perfect for the delicate strokes required for hieroglyphs. Wow. As he began to write, the translator followed a specific routine, a rhythm that had been followed by many before him. He would start with a single symbol, letting the ink flow slowly across the surface of the papyrus. Each stroke was deliberate, carefully forming the intricate shapes that held meaning. He would pause, observing the lines, ensuring that each curve and angle was precise and true, little by little, creating a visual language that transcended time and space. After completing a section of text, he would carefully examine the work. This stage was crucial, as any errors would require reworking, and mistakes were often frowned upon by the bureaucratic overseers who would later review the translations. Each symbol had a specific meaning, a weight of history behind it, and the translator understood that accuracy was paramount. Little by little, he would read over the symbols, ensuring they conveyed the intended message, the gentle rhythm of his thoughts mirroring the tranquil flow of ink on papyrus. Wow! Once satisfied with the completed translation, the scroll would be rolled tightly and secured with a fine piece of string made from flax fibers. This moment carried a sense of completion, a small victory in the lengthy process of approval. The scroll would then be placed in a designated storage area, a simple wooden box lined with soft cloth to prevent damage. The box served as a sanctuary for the scrolls, a place where the fruits of labor could rest until they were ready for review. Now, in the bustling cities of ancient Egypt, the next step was to prepare for presentation to the appropriate authorities. The translator would often have to travel to the center of the city, where the scribes and bureaucratic gatekeepers convened. This journey required careful planning, as the times for submission were specific and often dictated by the officials' schedules. The translator would typically set out early in the morning, before the sun cast its harsh light upon the streets. The comfort of dawn, with its soft hues of pink and gold, provided a calming backdrop for the day ahead. As he walked through the streets, he would be acutely aware of his surroundings. The scent of baked bread wafting from nearby stalls, the sounds of merchants calling out their wares, all created a gentle symphony of daily life. He would carry his scrolls carefully, cradling them in his arms, protecting them from the elements and the bustle of the marketplace. Each step was measured, each moment savored, as he moved closer to the heart of the city. Upon reaching the designated location, he would enter a large hall, its walls adorned with intricate murals depicting scenes of daily life and the pantheon of gods. The atmosphere within was thick with the weight of tradition and procedure. Here, he would join a line of fellow translators and scribes, each waiting patiently for their turn to present their work to the officials. The waiting could take time, perhaps several hours, during which he would focus on his breathing, allowing the rhythm of the day to envelop him. When his turn finally arrived, he would approach the official seated at a large wooden table, surrounded by scrolls and inkpots. The official, often a high-ranking scribe, would receive the scroll with a nod of acknowledgement. This moment was pivotal. It was a chance for his work to be seen, to be evaluated. He would present the scroll with both hands, the papyrus warm from his grasp, and offer a gentle bow of respect. The etiquette of this exchange was significant, a reflection of the deep-seated traditions that governed their society. As the official began to read, the translator would stand quietly, observing the subtle expressions that passed across the official's face. Each nod or frown signified a judgment, a response to the painstakingly crafted symbols that danced across the papyrus. The translator would take this time to reflect on his work, recalling the hours spent in solitude, the ink drying slowly as he crafted each line. Once the official had finished reading, he would make notes on a piece of papyrus, a separate document that would accompany the translation back to the translator. This feedback was crucial. It could range from minor corrections to significant alterations that might be required. The translator would accept the notes with grace, understanding that this process was part of the tradition, part of ensuring that the words of the ancients could be understood accurately by future generations. After the review, he would carefully roll up the scroll once more, securing it with the flax string, and then return home. The journey back would be filled with a sense of calmness, the weight of the day's work settling gently on his shoulders. Little by little, he would replay the events of the day in his mind, reflecting on the nuances of the process. Each step toward approval was a step toward preserving history, a gentle reminder of the importance of his role in the grand tapestry of time. Upon arriving at home, he would place the scrolls back in their protective box and take a moment to unwind. The act of translation was a labor of love, a connection to the past that required patience and dedication. He would light a small lamp, the flickering flame casting soft shadows around the room. With the evening stretching ahead of him, he would sit quietly, perhaps sipping on a cup of herbal tea. This ritual allowed him to relax, to settle into the serenity of the night, and to prepare for another day of translating the whispers of history. In this tranquil space, with the echoes of the day fading away, he would breathe deeply once more, feeling the gentle rise and fall of his chest. Each breath was a reminder of the quiet yet profound impact of his work. Little by little, the world around him would soften, and he would find solace in the knowledge that he was part of a lineage of scribes and translators, each contributing to the preservation of their rich heritage. As the evening drew on, the translator's mind began to drift toward the tools and materials that were essential to his work. The papyrus sheets, so integral to his craft, were carefully stored in a wooden chest, lined with soft cloth to protect them from dust and damage. Each sheet was meticulously sized, typically measuring about 20 by 30 centimeters. This standard size allowed for a comfortable balance between ample space for translation and manageability for handling. Each piece of papyrus was harvested from the papyrus plant, its fibers pressed and dried under the sun, leaving a texture that was smooth yet sturdy, perfect for inscribing delicate hieroglyphs. He would take a moment to appreciate the feel of the papyrus as he selected a fresh sheet for the night's work. The weight of the papyrus was comforting, a reminder of the many hands that had touched the same material over centuries. Slowly, he would place the sheet on a flat wooden board, a simple yet sturdy surface that provided a firm foundation for his delicate writing. The board had been worn smooth by years of use, and its edges were slightly rounded, a testament to its history. Next, he would reach for his reed pen, a simple yet effective tool crafted from the slender stalks of reed plants. The nib of the pen was sharpened to a fine point, allowing for precise strokes. He would dip the pen into a small pot of black ink, made from soot and water, mixed to achieve the ideal consistency. The ink was thick enough to hold its shape on the papyrus, but thin enough to flow easily from the pen's nib. With a gentle touch, he would draw the first lines of text, the ink gliding smoothly across the surface. Each stroke was deliberate and calm, a rhythmic dance of expression that linked him to the ancients. As he worked, he would often pause to assess the accuracy of his translations. It was a meticulous process, one that required keen attention to detail. He had at his side a well-worn dictionary of hieroglyphs, its pages filled with carefully illustrated symbols and their meanings. The book had been passed down through generations, its binding slightly frayed, yet it remained a constant companion. Each symbol had its own story, and he would lean in closer, tracing the outlines of the hieroglyphs with his finger, feeling the contours as if they were tangible connections to the past. The approval process for his translations was, in itself, an intricate dance of procedures. Once he completed a section, he would carefully roll the scroll, ensuring that the ink was dry before making any movements. He would wrap the scroll in a piece of linen cloth, tying it gently with twine to keep it secure. This was an important ritual, for the linen served as a protective layer against the elements, shielding the delicate papyrus from moisture and dust. With each scroll carefully prepared, he would then arrange them in chronological order on a shelf, organized by date and theme, a quiet testament to his dedication. Once a week, he would present his completed scrolls to the official scribe for review. This meeting was a critical component of the approval process. The official scribe, a figure of authority within the bureaucratic structure, would sit at a large wooden table, covered with scrolls and inkpots, surrounded by a multitude of symbols and their meanings. The translator would arrive early, taking care to breathe deeply and calm his mind, for the approval process could be daunting. He would gently roll out his scrolls, laying them before the official scribe, each one a promise of connection to the past. No, Esau, Lumsfiel. The official scribe would begin by examining each hieroglyph with a discerning eye, a process that required great patience and precision. The translator would sit quietly, watching as the scribe flipped through the scrolls, his thoughts drifting to how long this process might take. It was not uncommon for the review to last several hours, as the official would occasionally refer to other texts for comparison. Time seemed to stretch and ebb like the Nile, the tranquil sound of ink scratching against papyrus filling the air. The translator understood the importance of this scrutiny. Each translation had implications for understanding history, culture, and language. Little by little, he felt a sense of honor in having his work reviewed by such an esteemed figure. The official scribe would occasionally nod in approval or furrow his brow in concentration, a silent dialogue between the two men. After what felt like an eternity, the official would finally place his stamp of approval, a small seal carved from stone, on the scroll, a simple yet significant gesture that marked the completion of another chapter in the long journey of translation. Messiah. Once the scrolls were approved, the translator would return home, feeling a gentle weight lifted from his shoulders. He took care to store the approved scrolls in a designated area, specifically set aside for these important documents. Each scroll would be placed within a protective case, crafted from wood and lined with soft fabric, ensuring that they would be preserved for future generations. The cases were neatly labeled, their contents denoted in delicate script, a system designed to aid in organization and retrieval. The routine of translation and approval was a soothing cycle, one that brought both purpose and peace. Each phase required attention to detail and a commitment to preserving knowledge. As he settled into his evening routine, he would reflect on the day's accomplishments. He would prepare a simple meal, perhaps a bowl of lentil stew, the warm, earthy aromas filling the air. The act of cooking was a meditative one, allowing his mind to unwind and find solace in the rhythm of chopping vegetables and stirring the pot. After enjoying his meal, he would take a moment to tidy his workspace. The gentle clinking of clay ink pots and the soft rustle of papyrus created a soothing symphony, a reminder of the day's labor. He would carefully clean his reed pen, running it under cool water, ensuring it would be ready for the next day's work. With each delicate stroke of the water, he felt a sense of closure, a gentle transition from day to night. As the moon rose high in the sky, he would prepare for bed. The peacefulness of the night would wrap around him like a soft blanket, comforting and reassuring. He would settle onto his mat, taking care to arrange the pillows just so, feeling the gentle support as he laid his head down. Little by little, he would close his eyes, feeling a sense of gratitude for the simple, yet profound, act of preservation he had committed to. His heart would slow, and he would breathe deeply, allowing the quiet of the night to embrace him. With each breath, he would feel the weight of the day ease away, drifting gently into the soft embrace of sleep. As dawn approached, the gentle light of the sun would begin to peek through the small openings of the workshop. The scribe would rise slowly, stretching his limbs with care, feeling each muscle awaken from the embrace of sleep. He would take a moment to breathe deeply, inhaling the fresh morning air, which carried with it the faint scent of baked bread from a nearby bakery. Slowly, he would gather his tools, preparing for another day of translating hieroglyphs, each stroke on the papyrus a step towards unraveling the mysteries of the past. The scribe would begin his day by carefully selecting his materials. He would reach for a fresh roll of papyrus, its smooth surface promising a canvas for his work. This papyrus, made from the pith of the papyrus plant, was a treasured commodity. He would measure his strips precisely, cutting them into rectangles of about 20 centimeters wide and 40 centimeters long. Each piece, uniform in size, would be perfect for the hieroglyphs he intended to inscribe. As he cut, he would take care to avoid tearing, ensuring a clean edge, which would be essential for clarity in his writing. Next, he would prepare his reed pen. The pen, crafted from the slender stem of a reed, would be cut at an angle, creating a fine nib. He would dip it into a small clay ink pot, filled with a dark mixture of soot and water. The ink, rich and viscous, would cling to the pen, awaiting the scribe's guiding hand. With each stroke, the ink would flow smoothly onto the papyrus, creating the intricate symbols that told stories of gods, kings, and the everyday lives of the ancient Egyptians. The scribe would take a moment to breathe deeply again, letting the weight of the task settle gently upon his shoulders. He would begin to work, each hieroglyph demanding attention and respect. The process was meticulous. He would often pause to consider the meanings, the symbols intertwining into a delicate dance of language. Each sign represented not just a sound, but a story, a connection to the past, a thread woven carefully into the fabric of history. As he wrote, he would adhere to the ancient protocols established by the scribal community. The rules were clear and unyielding. Each translation had to be approved by a superior, a chief scribe, who would examine the work for accuracy and clarity. This could take time. Days, sometimes weeks, would pass as the scroll made its way through the layers of bureaucracy. The scribe would often find himself waiting, reflecting on the importance of patience. Little by little, he would remind himself, good things come to those who wait. In the late morning, he would set aside his work, allowing his mind to rest. He would visit the marketplace, a vibrant place filled with sounds and scents. Here, he would purchase fresh food for his midday meal. A small loaf of bread, a few figs, perhaps some lentils, each item carefully weighed and exchanged for a few copper coins. The transactions, though simple, were rituals of their own. The clinking of coins, the bartering of goods, the exchanged smiles of the vendors and customers, each moment was woven into the fabric of daily life. After returning to his workshop, he would prepare his meal. The act of cooking was a calming process, one that allowed his mind to wander as he chopped and stirred. He would take a moment to appreciate the rhythmic sound of his knife against the cutting board, the aroma of the ingredients mingling in the air. Slowly, he would savor each bite, enjoying the fruits of his labor. Meals were a time for reflection, a moment to gather thoughts before the work resumed. Once he finished eating, he would return to his desk. The papyrus awaited him, and the hieroglyphs seemed to whisper, encouraging him to continue. He would carefully review his previous work, checking each symbol against the scrolls of the past. The scrolls were stored on wooden shelves, labeled and organized, each one a testament to the labor of countless scribes who had come before him. He would gently pull one down, feeling the weight of history in his hands. With the scroll open before him, he would compare the symbols, taking notes on the margins of his own work. The process was methodical, requiring an eye for detail. Every nuance mattered. If a symbol was misinterpreted, it could change the meaning entirely. Therefore, he would work diligently, ensuring that every stroke was intentional, every curve of the ink purposeful. Hours would pass in this way, each moment a gentle ebb and flow of thought and reflection. When the sun reached its highest point, he would pause again, allowing the warmth of the day to wash over him. He would take a sip of water, feeling its coolness refresh his spirit. Little by little, the day unfolded in a predictable rhythm, each hour blending into the next, much like the flow of the Nile. Now, Ryu. As the afternoon waned, he would prepare for the next phase of his work. Once his translations were complete, they would need to be submitted for approval. The chief scribe, a figure of authority, would scrutinize every phrase, every symbol. This process was known as the examination of the scroll, a necessary step that ensured the precision of the translation. The chief scribe would sit at a large wooden table, surrounded by scrolls and inkpots, his expression serious and focused. When ready, the scribe would carefully roll his scroll and tie it with a string made from flax. He would then make his way to the chief scribe's office, navigating the corridors lined with shelves of scrolls and tablets. The walls were adorned with more hieroglyphs, a reminder of the beauty and complexity of the work they all share. Upon arriving, he would present his scroll with reverence, laying it gently on the table. The chief scribe would take his time, examining each symbol with meticulous care. Silence would fill the room, broken only by the sound of ink being dipped and the scratching of reed pens. The scribe would watch, heart steady, as the chief scribe made notes, sometimes nodding in approval, other times frowning in contemplation. This process could take hours, stretching into the evening. He would remain patient, breathing slowly, knowing that the approval would lead to the continuation of his work. At times, the chief scribe would return the scroll with comments, suggestions for improvement, or even a gentle critique. The scribe would listen intently, absorbing the wisdom offered. With each piece of feedback, he would make the necessary adjustments, returning to his desk, ready to refine his translations. Little by little, he would transform criticism into growth, ensuring each scroll was worthy of the ancient tales they represented. The sun would begin its descent, casting a warm glow through the windows of the workshop. The scribe would continue to work, the rhythmic motion of his pen against the papyrus soothing to his spirit. He knew that every detail mattered, every symbol a pathway to understand it. Hieroglyphs were not mere pictures. They were the voices of the past, echoing through time. And so he would write on, guided by the gentle hand of history, embracing the calm and the quiet of his work, until the stars began to twinkle in the evening sky. As the light dwindled outside, the scribe prepared to organize his tools, ensuring each instrument was ready for the next phase of his work. He gathered his reed pens, carefully selecting those with the finest tips for precise strokes. Each pen was a delicate tool, crafted from the natural reeds that grew along the banks of the Nile. The scribe knew that the quality of his pens was crucial. A well-made pen would glide smoothly over the papyrus, while a poorly crafted one could produce uneven lines, disrupting the flow of his hieroglyphs. He dipped a pen into the ink, which he had made from soot and water, mixed in equal parts. The consistency was important. Too thick, and it would clump; too thin, and it would run. He achieved the perfect blend through gentle stirring, creating a deep, rich black. The ink would then be carefully stored in small clay pots, each sealed with a thin layer of wax to prevent drying. The scribe ensured that these pots were stored in a cool, shaded area away from the warmth of the sun, which could alter the delicate balance of the ink. After preparing his materials, the scribe turned his attention to the papyrus sheets. Each sheet had been carefully crafted from the papyrus plant, cut into strips and layered, then pressed and dried under heavy stones. The scribe appreciated the smooth texture of the papyrus, knowing that it would enhance the clarity of his writing. He took a moment to measure the dimensions of his scrolls, ensuring that each one was roughly 30 centimeters wide, a standard size for scrolls used in translations. This consistency was important for storage, as scrolls would be placed in designated areas, categorized by subject matter, to make retrieval easier. Little by little, he would stack the scrolls in order, using twine to bind them neatly. Each scroll was labeled with a small tag made from a scrap of papyrus, indicating its contents and the date of completion. This attention to detail would help the scribe and his colleagues navigate the vast library of translations awaiting approval. When it came time to submit his work for approval, the scribe followed a specific routine. He would gather a few scrolls, carefully wrapping them in a larger piece of papyrus to protect them during transit. This package would be carried to the chief scribe's office, a short walk across the courtyard. He always made sure to hold his scrolls close to his chest, mindful of the delicate nature of the papyrus. Upon arrival, he would knock softly on the door, a gentle reminder of his presence. The chief scribe, a figure of authority and wisdom, would invite him in with a calm nod. The scribe would bow slightly, a gesture of respect, before presenting his scrolls. The chief scribe would take the time to examine each one, often engaging in quiet contemplation. During this evaluation, the scribe remained still, breathing slowly, allowing the silence to envelop him. Each moment of pause was an opportunity to reflect on his work, the symbols and meanings contained within. The approval process, while tedious, was essential for the preservation of knowledge. After reviewing the scrolls, the chief scribe would make meticulous notes in the margins, using a small, sharpened tool to inscribe comments directly onto the papyrus. This feedback was invaluable. It provided insights into the nuances of translation, the subtleties that could easily be overlooked. The scribe understood the importance of this critique, knowing it would ultimately enhance the clarity and accuracy of his work. He would then take the scrolls home, carefully storing them alongside his previous translations, ensuring that they were protected from dust and moisture. Little by little, he would build a collection of approved works, each one a testament to his dedication and skill. The approval process could take days or even weeks, depending on the volume of scrolls awaiting review. In the evenings, as he settled into his routine, the scribe would often reflect on the importance of patience in his work. He would read through his approved translations, allowing the words to flow through his mind like a gentle stream. Each character was a reminder of the stories waiting to be told, the history seeking to be preserved. The scribe's workspace was organized with great care. He kept a small basket on his desk for discarded scraps of papyrus, remnants of earlier drafts that did not meet his standards. He would often sift through these scraps, occasionally finding a phrase or symbol that inspired him anew. The process of creation was not linear. It was filled with exploration and discovery, quiet moments of inspiration nestled between the mundane tasks of translation. As the days turned into weeks, the scribe developed a routine that calmed his spirit. He would rise early in the morning, the soft light of dawn filtering through the windows, illuminating his workspace. After a simple breakfast of bread and honey, he would begin his day with a period of meditation, allowing his mind to settle before diving into his work. This practice of mindfulness helped him cultivate a sense of peace, a necessary foundation for the meticulous work of translation. Slowly and gently, he would start with small tasks, reviewing previous translations before moving on to new scrolls. He would take notes in a separate notebook, a personal record of ideas and thoughts that came to him throughout the day. This notebook was a treasure trove of inspiration, filled with sketches of hieroglyphs and reflections on language. When the sun reached its zenith, casting a warm glow across the room, the scribe would pause for a moment in gratitude. He appreciated the opportunity to engage with the past, to bridge the gap between ancient voices and modern listeners. Each stroke of his pen was a connection, a dialogue with those who had come before him. In the afternoons, he would often meet with fellow scribes. They would gather in a shaded area, discussing their projects and sharing insights. This community of scholars was a source of support, their conversations a gentle hum of encouragement. They would exchange scrolls, providing feedback to one another in a spirit of camaraderie. These meetings were calm and structured, with each scribe taking turns presenting their work. The atmosphere was relaxed. There was no rush. They understood the value of careful consideration, the importance of each symbol in conveying meaning. Little by little, they would build upon one another's ideas, fostering a collective wisdom that enriched their translations. As the sun began its descent once more, casting a golden hue over the courtyard, the scribe would return to his desk, ready to continue his work. Each day flowed into the next, a rhythm of routine and reflection. The process of translation was no simple task. It was an intricate dance, requiring precision, patience, and passion. Why? And so, he would write on, guided by the gentle hand of history, embracing the calm and the quiet of his work, until the stars began to twinkle in the evening sky. As the scribe settled down at his desk, he reached for his tools, essential companions in his daily endeavors. He picked up a thin reed brush, its tip delicately sharpened to a fine point. This brush would glide across the smooth surface of the papyrus, leaving behind the intricate symbols known as hieroglyphs. The scribe took a moment to appreciate the brush, its simplicity, and the craftsmanship involved in its creation. Each brushstroke needed to be deliberate, each mark precise. He glanced at the small pot of ink resting nearby, its dark liquid glistening under the soft light. This ink was made from a mixture of soot and water, carefully blended to achieve the right consistency. The scribe had learned over time that the ideal ink flowed smoothly, allowing for effortless writing. Too thick, and it would clump. Too thin, and it would run. Finding that perfect balance was a crucial part of the process. As he dipped the brush into the ink, he measured the amount carefully. Just enough to cover the tip without excess dripping. That was the key. Precision was required at every step. With a steady hand, he began to write, each symbol emerging with grace and intention. The scribe often worked in quiet solitude, but he was part of a broader system. A system that demanded adherence to certain protocols. Each translation had to pass through layers of scrutiny. Once the scribe completed his work, he would roll the scroll carefully and seal it with a piece of string, ensuring it remained secure. This scroll would then be submitted for review to a higher authority, often a senior scribe, or an overseer in charge of translations. The approval process was methodical and unforgiving. The scribe would often wait days, sometimes even weeks, for feedback. He would use this time to refine his skills, perhaps practicing new symbols or studying ancient texts for inspiration. He understood that each detail mattered, that even the slightest deviation could lead to errors in meaning. Occasionally, the overseer would summon the scribe to discuss his work in person. This meeting was always held in a designated area within the scribe's workshop, a room lined with shelves full of scrolls, each containing the thoughts and ideas of previous scholars. During these discussions, the overseer would examine the scroll, sometimes pointing out areas that required correction. The scribe would listen attentively, jotting down notes on a small piece of parchment. No, it was a gentle exchange, one filled with respect for the craft. The overseer would speak in calm tones, emphasizing the importance of accuracy. "Remember," he would say softly, "each symbol holds significance. Each stroke bears weight." The scribe would nod, absorbing this wisdom, eager to improve. Once the overseer approved the scroll, the scribe could finally move forward. However, there were still additional steps. He needed to make copies of the approved translation. This involved unrolling the original scroll and carefully recreating the symbols on a new piece of papyrus. This second scroll would then be filed away, stored in a designated area reserved for completed translations. The storage room was a cool, dimly lit space where the air was still and quiet. Each scroll was placed in a protective tube made from lightweight wood, ensuring that they remained safe from the elements. The scribe took great care in organizing these tubes, labeling each one meticulously. The labels were written in fine hieroglyphs themselves, indicating the title of the work, the author's name, and the date of completion. He had developed a system of categorization that was both efficient and intuitive. Scrolls were arranged chronologically, but also by subject matter. This made it easier for anyone seeking knowledge to find what they needed. It was a thoughtful process, designed to support the pursuit of wisdom. Each time a scroll was added, the scribe felt a sense of accomplishment, knowing that he was contributing to a legacy of learning. Yeah. Returning to his desk, he would take a moment to breathe deeply. The rhythmic sound of his pen moving across the papyrus was soothing. He would often pause between writing sessions, allowing his eyes to rest. This was an important practice, one that ensured he remained focused and not overwhelmed. The scribe would close his eyes for a brief moment, picturing each symbol as he had learned them, each one a key unlocking a door to the past. Alongside his writing routine, there was another layer of etiquette he followed. Each morning, he would prepare a simple meal before starting his work. This meal consisted of bread, often accompanied by a small portion of honey or fruit. He understood that nourishment was vital, for the mind and body needed to be in harmony. Sitting quietly, savoring each bite, he would reflect on the day ahead. After his meal, he would wash his hands in a basin of cool water, feeling the freshness rejuvenate him. This cleansing ritual was a signal to his mind that it was time to begin anew. He would dry his hands on a linen cloth, taking a moment to appreciate its softness against his skin. Once seated at his desk, he would review his previous work, ensuring he was familiar with the flow of ideas. Each translation required not only attention to detail, but a deeper understanding of the context surrounding the symbols. This often involved reading through related texts or examining the nuances of language. He had a small collection of reference scrolls nearby, which provided guidance and inspiration. Their presence was comforting, a reminder of the vast reservoir of knowledge that existed. Throughout the day, the scribe would work diligently, taking breaks as needed. He understood the importance of pacing himself, of allowing his thoughts to breathe. Sometimes he would step outside into the courtyard, where gentle breezes rustled the leaves of nearby trees. This moment of connection with nature allowed him to reset his mind before returning to his desk. Was. As the sun began to set, casting soft shadows across the workshop, he knew that soon it would be time to pause for the evening. He would roll up his scrolls, placing them safely on the shelf, a quiet sense of fulfillment settling over him. He cherished the calm of the workspace as it transformed into a sanctuary of thoughts and symbols. With each passing day, the ancient process continued. Each symbol, each stroke, was a part of a larger narrative, one that stretched back through time. It was a labor of love and respect, a commitment to preserving the wisdom of those who came before. The scribe embraced this journey, one that was quietly profound, yet infinitely gentle, weaving the fabric of history, little by little, day by day. Nay, as the evening settled in, the scribe would prepare for the next day's work, a ritual that brought a sense of calm and anticipation. He would begin by gathering his tools, each item carefully chosen for its purpose. The reed pens, slender and pointed, had been crafted with precision, their tips sharpened just so to create delicate lines on the soft surface of the papyrus. The process of making a reed pen was meticulous. It required cutting the reeds at a precise angle, ensuring a smooth writing experience. The scribe would soak the reed stems in water, allowing them to become more pliable, making them easier to shape. Next, he would select the right colors for his work. The pigments, derived from natural minerals and plants, were stored in small clay pots, neatly arranged on a shelf. The scribe would carefully measure out the pigments, mixing them with a binding agent. This might include water or a type of gum, creating a paste that adhered well to the papyrus. He would take his time, enjoying the tactile experience of blending the colors, watching as they transformed into vibrant hues. Each color had its own significance, and he knew the importance of choosing the right shade for each hieroglyph. Once the colors were ready, he would prepare his workspace. The scribe would lay out a large piece of papyrus, smoothing it carefully across the wooden writing board. This was an essential step, as any wrinkle or fold could disrupt the flow of writing. The papyrus had been prepared in advance, soaking in water, then pressed under heavy stones to dry, resulting in a smooth surface that was both durable and inviting. After laying out his materials, he would take a moment to breathe deeply, allowing the weight of the day to dissipate, focusing on the task ahead. Each day began with a careful reading of the previous work, ensuring consistency and continuity in the script. The scribe would trace over the symbols, feeling the familiar shapes beneath his fingers, connecting with the history and culture that they represented. He understood that every stroke was a link to the past, a thread woven into the tapestry of time. The hieroglyphs themselves were an intricate system of symbols, each with its own meaning and pronunciation. The scribe would reference his earlier writings, ensuring that every symbol was placed correctly, in accordance with established traditions. Hieroglyphic writing was not just about the symbols themselves. It also involved an understanding of the rhythm and flow of language. Each character had a place and purpose, and the scribe respected this delicate balance as he worked. With his tools and materials ready, he would begin to write. The motion of the pen was fluid and deliberate, each stroke a dance of intention on the papyrus. The scribe often found a meditative quality in this process. Slowly and gently, he would allow his thoughts to take shape as he formed the symbols. The hours would pass in a soothing rhythm, the sound of the pen gliding across the surface providing a backdrop to his focused labor. As he worked, he would occasionally pause to reflect on the meaning of the text. The scribe knew that he was not just transcribing words. He was preserving the essence of his civilization for future generations. This knowledge lent a weight to his pen, a gravity that infused each hieroglyph with purpose. He would often find himself whispering the words softly, feeling the vibrations of the language resonate within him. Oh, Neji. And throughout the day, the scribe would take care to maintain a clean workspace, an essential aspect of the process. He would keep a small sponge nearby, using it to wipe away any errors or excess pigment. The act of correction was gentle, a simple stroke with the damp sponge, bringing the papyrus back to its clean, blank state. The scribe understood that mistakes were part of the journey, allowing for the opportunity to reflect and learn. Nine. Gay. Siwam. Uba. When the sun reached its zenith, casting warm light into the workshop, the scribe would pause for his midday meal. He would step outside, taking a few moments to appreciate the world around him. The sounds of nature provided a calming backdrop, the gentle rustle of leaves and the distant calls of birds, creating a melodic symphony. During this time, he would enjoy simple fare, perhaps a piece of bread, accompanied by a cup of water or light broth. After his meal, he would return to his desk, ready to engage with the work once more. Each session was punctuated by the same careful routines, the same gentle movements of his hands as he resumed his writing. The afternoon light would shift, casting a golden hue over the papyrus, illuminating the symbols and bringing them to life. Gao, Surao, Wafi, Interior, and Shigamonishu. As the day wore on, the scribe would sometimes consult with his fellow scribes, a group of skilled artisans who shared the same dedication to their craft. They would gather in small groups, sharing insights, discussing the nuances of translation and interpretation. These moments of collaboration were precious, filled with laughter and quiet camaraderie, a reminder that they were part of something greater, a lineage of knowledge that stretched back through the ages. Well, when it was time for the workday to end, the scribe would carefully roll up his scrolls. Each scroll was a testament to his diligence, his attention to detail. He would tie them securely with twine, placing them in a designated storage area, a cool, dark space designed to protect them from the elements. The scrolls were treasures, waiting to be discovered by future readers who would unfurl them, marveling at the symbols crafted by his hand. Before leaving for the day, he would take a moment to clean his tools, rinsing the reed pens in a bowl of water, ensuring that they would be ready for the next session. The pigments would be sealed tightly, preventing them from drying out, a simple ritual that ensured continuity in his work. As he stepped out of the workshop, he would take a deep breath, inhaling the scent of the papyrus and the lingering aroma of the pigments. This gentle act of closing the day was both grounding and comforting, a reminder of the labor he had invested in each symbol. With each passing day, he would continue to weave the story of his civilization, adding layer upon layer to the rich tapestry of history, slowly and gently. And so the cycle continued, a gentle rhythm of creation and reflection, day by day. Each moment spent in the quiet sanctuary of the workshop was a step deeper into the heart of understanding, revealing the beauty in the mundane, the profound in the simple, as he honored the art of hieroglyphic translation, one stroke at a time. Unbidi, elimde, anau, etsohani. In the tranquil atmosphere of the ancient workshop, the craftsman would prepare for another day of meticulous work, a work that required patience and precision. Each tool had its place. Each tool had a purpose. The reed pens, slender and delicate, were arranged in a small clay holder. They would wait there, ready to glide across the smooth surface of the papyrus. The papyrus itself, long sheets of fibrous material, was stored in bundles, each tied gently with soft linen threads to prevent it from curling or becoming damaged. The craftsman would select a sheet, measuring it carefully with a wooden ruler, ensuring it was just the right size for the script he intended to create. He often found comfort in these measurements, the familiarity of the numbers grounding him as he prepared for the day ahead. Each sheet of papyrus would be approximately 20 to 30 centimeters wide, a standard size that catered to the needs of the hieroglyphic translations. Once selected, the sheet would be laid flat upon the smooth wooden surface of the table. The table itself, worn and polished by years of use, held the imprints of countless days of labor. As he placed the papyrus down, he would take a moment to admire the texture, the way the fibers intertwined, forming a canvas that was both unforgiving and forgiving. The surface was rough yet pliable, allowing for the ink to settle into its grooves, capturing the symbols he would inscribe. Next, he would prepare the pigments, each color a testament to the earth from which it came. He would open small pots of ochre, azurite, and charcoal, each carefully labeled with their respective names. The ochre, a warm yellow, would remind him of the sun-drenched sands of the desert. The azurite, a deep blue, called to mind the vastness of the Nile waters. He would mix them with water from a small clay bowl, creating a paste that was neither too thick nor too thin, just right for the delicate application on papyrus. With the pigments ready, he would dip his reed pen into the mixture, allowing the tip to absorb just enough to ensure a steady flow of color. This act, simple yet vital, required a practiced hand, a gentle touch. Too much ink, and the symbols would bleed into one another. Too little, and the hieroglyphs would appear faint and lifeless. As he began to write, his hand would move fluidly, crafting each symbol with care. The hieroglyphs danced upon the surface, each one a note in the grand melody of communication. He would often pause, glancing at a reference scroll to ensure the accuracy of his work. This scroll, a treasured artifact, contained examples of correct forms and meanings, a guide through the labyrinth of symbols. The approval process for his translations was, by design, slow and deliberate. Each completed work would eventually need to be reviewed by a panel of learned scribes, gatekeepers of knowledge and tradition. Their approval was essential, for only then could the translations be shared with the greater population. He understood the importance of this step, the need for accuracy and consistency, but it could be a time-consuming endeavor. Once he completed a section, he would carefully roll the papyrus sheet and place it in a protective tube made of reed, ensuring its safety until it was time for submission. This tube, simple yet effective, measured about 50 centimeters in length, allowing ample space for several sheets to be stored without crumpling. The craftsman would sometimes glance at the scrolls already nestled within, each one a testament to his dedication, awaiting their moment to be revealed to the learned panel. As he moved through the day, The craftsman followed a quiet schedule. Mornings were reserved for writing, afternoons for reviewing previous works, and evenings were often spent in the company of other scribes, discussing nuances of language and meaning. This camaraderie provided warmth amidst the rigors of their tasks, a gentle reminder that they were all part of a larger narrative. Etiquette was paramount when it came to the approval process. The craftsman would meticulously prepare a formal presentation of his translations. Each scroll would be unrolled carefully in front of the panel, ensuring that the symbols were easily visible. He would bow slightly, a gesture of respect for their position and knowledge. With each translation, he would summarize the intent behind his work, speaking softly, articulating the meaning of each hieroglyph. The approval panel, composed of esteemed scribes and scholars, would take their time. They would study the symbols closely, their brows furrowed in concentration, their fingers tracing the lines on the papyrus. This scrutiny could last for hours, sometimes even days, as they deliberated over the accuracy and the nuances of the translations. After their review, they would offer their feedback, gently guiding him on areas that required refinement. Their critiques, delivered in hushed tones, often included suggestions for alternative symbols or slight adjustments to phrasing. He would listen attentively, taking notes on small pieces of papyrus, ensuring that he absorbed every word. Once the panel reached a consensus, they would seal their approval with a stamp, an emblem of authority pressed into a small blob of wet clay. This stamp bore the names of the scribes involved, a mark of authenticity that would accompany his work into the world. The craftsman would then feel a sense of relief wash over him, as the weight of uncertainty lifted from his shoulders. He would take a moment to breathe deeply, reflecting on the journey of each translation, from the initial stroke of the reed pen to the final approval by the learned panel. This process, while seemingly mundane, was crucial to the preservation of knowledge and culture, a delicate balance between tradition and innovation. Each approved translation would go on to educate and inspire, adding richness to the tapestry of Egyptian history. The craftsman knew this, and with each completed work, he felt pride in being part of such a significant legacy. As the day drew to a close, he would return to his workshop, the gentle sounds of the bustling town fading into the background. He would begin to clean his tools once more, rinsing the reed pens carefully, ensuring they remained in prime condition for the next day. The pigments would be sealed, not only to preserve their potency, but also to signify the end of another day filled with purpose. Each action was a ritual, a comforting sequence that marked the passage of time, a time that was both slow and deliberate. He would take one last glance at the scrolls stacked neatly upon his table, feeling the weight of history within their fibers. The quiet satisfaction of the day's labor would wash over him, a gentle reminder of the importance of his craft. With the sun setting beyond the horizon, he would step outside, taking a moment to breathe in the cool evening air. The day may have been filled with the minutiae of translation and approval processes, but within those details lay the essence of his existence. He felt at peace, knowing that he was contributing to a legacy that would stretch beyond his time, slowly and gently, filling the pages of history with every stroke of his pen, as he continued to honor the art of hieroglyphic translation, one deliberate moment at a time. In this gentle exploration of ancient Egyptian hieroglyphic translation approval processes, we have journeyed through the meticulous steps required to navigate the bureaucratic landscape of the time. We learned about the careful scrutiny of each pictograph, the importance of papyrus, and the quiet persistence needed to gain approval from the gatekeepers of knowledge. Little by little, we uncovered the tedious nature of these approvals, with the ever-present threat of paper cuts and the soft sighs of frustration echoing in the air. Now, as the day draws to a close, imagine a quiet room, softly illuminated by the glow of the moon, where your body finds rest and your mind drifts gently into peaceful slumber. If you enjoyed this serene journey through history, please consider liking, subscribing, or sharing your thoughts in the comments. And remember to turn on loop so the calming rhythm continues to lull you into relaxation.